IIT Madras, and who is my friend professor, and Arvind, and we've been talking a lot, and he's driving one of the most wanted initiative in India, I would say, the hydrogen, and I happen to be in a couple of engagements with Professor Arvind, and one first was the zinc air batteries. That was the first initiative which was there. And that's the only place I have seen his lab where he has got the grid-free building, where it is completely is able to find a way to store the energy locally. Otherwise, it is usually whatever you generate through the solar, it is given back to the grid, which is not in case of Professor Aravind. And the last bit is about the Green Hydrogen Valley. And that is the name, the prefix which got added thanks to the IIT Madras director, who said, Professor Arvind, please add green. Now, and that's going to be my first question. So how do you really explain for a layman like me the difference between the green and the blue hydrogen?
Great, Venkatesh sir. First of all, thanks so much for the opportunity. And whenever if something is about hydrogen, I'm really excited. And thanks for the opportunity today. And thanks everyone who are joining on a Saturday to discuss about the hydrogen story and other supply chain systems. So just to give a bit of feel, sir, connecting on the green building you talked about, now we have a building running on hydrogen, by the way. I would love to invite everyone to come over and visit IIT Madras. So we have done testing our building with batteries. We have taken all the data and we realized something that's missing. And that's where we felt hydrogen is very much required. And we are running part of the building with green hydrogen. So we have a complete hydrogen microgrid set up at IIT Madras. So I invite yourself and all of our distinguished participants to come over to IITM to visit this. And just to give a bit of differentiator between what is we are using hydrogen every day in fertilizers, it's been used in refineries, it's been used in steel industry, it's been used. And now we are talking about all of a sudden a green hydrogen. So the conventional hydrogen, of course, is made through fossil fuels, either gas or either can be a coke using steam methane reforming process or other gasification processes. In fact, today 1 kg of hydrogen production generates somewhere around 10 and 25 kg of carbon dioxide. Although hydrogen by itself looks clean, but then if we'll slightly dig behind, it's so ugly, actually, honestly. And now we are talking about reducing that whole carbon footprint from the hydrogen. And there comes the whole story. Can we generate hydrogen through, let's say, electrolysis process, which is completely powered by green energy, like, let's say, solar or wind or any other non-carbon emitting sources? And that hydrogen generated by these processes are supposedly called green. However, it's not purely green. Although the definition says it's green, the problem is, let's say, if you want to generate renewable electricity, an infrastructure is created for renewable electricity, which emitted carbon dioxide for its manufacturing. Similarly, the infrastructure that's being built, that is electrolyzers, for green hydrogen generation also will emit carbon dioxide somewhere else, right? So today, the people said, like, if you limit your emission to less than 3 kg of carbon dioxide per kg of hydrogen, we can consider it green. And that is the green hydrogen definition. In fact, one other thing is also people, the word green hydrogen elsewhere in Europe and US, it's predominantly by electrolysis process. In India, it's kind of cleverly introduced the word like amount of emission is considered for the green, not by the process. Elsewhere, it's about electrolysis. In India, it's about amount of carbon dioxide emitted. That includes the bio to hydrogen production, because India has a lot of biomass being generated every year. And can these biomass waste can be used to generate hydrogen? And if they emit less than 3 kg of carbon dioxide, that also can be considered green. So this is the definition of green and the conventional hydrogen.
Okay, great. The reason which actually some of the global people are using that, maybe please correct me if I'm wrong, is they are still pushed by the oil lobby, and that is what I read in one of the blogs, which said that the blue is predominantly from the oil and gas side. And it is very difficult for any government to get rid of the lobby. And they continue. And just to confuse the audience, they add this suffix, which is hydrogen. So the blue is to differentiate from green. So that's how the blue hydrogen came up. So is it right?
Actually, the I talked about the black hydrogen, so or gray hydrogen. The blue hydrogen is, in fact, people talk about when you produce by renewables, the cost of hydrogen is quite high. So what they say is that let's use the conventional way of generating hydrogen and dump those hydrogen underground, like let's say carbon dioxide, sorry, the emissions underground by carbon capture. And sequestration, and that is called blue hydrogen. So essentially, one is might be about the lobby and then the confusion that people want to create. But on the other side, what people think is that the electrolytic hydrogen that we're going to produce is still at a very nascent stage when it comes to mass production of hydrogen. And it takes some time. So can we use the intermittent thing as a transition rather than just going from point A to point B? We have an intermittent transition through this blue so that the demand for hydrogen will still be met. But there exists another problem about how we are going to store so much amount of carbon dioxide being emitted. And do we have depleted oil wells? We have aquifers. Should we put it under the seabed? A lot of questions unanswered in that side. It's still a confusion on the blue hydrogen side, definitely.
Since the time we met, is there any real-time big-scale case of use case of hydrogen generation in India?
Yeah, yes, that's a very good one. Typically, we talk quite a lot and put a lot of wishes on paper, but execution is always very slow. And whereas with the hydrogen side, I feel there are some projects still the amount of promises given are quite high. But I've seen some small implementations. For example, we have seen an implementation by L&T in Hazira plant, and we also have seen some in Oil India. And there are like, and then NTPC is trying something. There are like isolated efforts being done, but still the concerted efforts to meet the ambitions of the green hydrogen is still not been done, is what I would say. Although there are a lot of hydrogen hub initiatives have come up, and there are a lot of PLI schemes have come up, both for green hydrogen production as well as the infrastructure to create green hydrogen, the site program, strategic intervention for green hydrogen transition. So all these things are happening, but on ground, I personally felt we are talking quite a lot in the, for the past 2 years, but the ambitions and the execution probably have to go in hand. I feel the gap between the two is demand issue, or the essentially demand creation is very important, and that is something is missing due to the high cost of green hydrogen today. And that's why we felt like government has to kick in and try to really address this specific issue. So.
Okay. So is it the case like the biomass is the single approach most of the players currently trying to do are using it?
No, no. Biomass is going to be one set of green hydrogen generation. But even today, the hydrogen generation by biomass is not kind of well established. When you look at the electrolysis, it's a very mature technology, although it's not been implemented heavily in the very large scale. For example, if you take submarines, they use electrolysis to generate oxygen for the sailors inside a submarine, and they run for 150,000 hours or 200,000 hours without any problem continuously. Of course, their interest is not hydrogen, their interest is mostly oxygen. So technology wise, it's very mature, but it's about the scale at which we are looking for is something that's not readily available today. Whereas biomass technology is, I would say, probably at the pilot level and not ready for the large scale commercial implementation today. And since there are also issues about biomass, which I probably should have added in the previous question you have asked, elsewhere in Europe, US, or South America, biomass is grown specifically for the purpose of generation of fuels. It has happened with ethanol, right? And hence, I think that literally loses the entire agricultural lands. So the Western countries typically don't want to really touch anything biomass because we cannot differentiate between, is it a agricultural residue that's going into the biomass for hydrogen, or is it the actual biomass grown only for hydrogen production? So biomass on one side, there are ethical issues on where the biomass is coming from, the identification, supposedly identification of biomass. The second thing is that the technology itself is not as mature as electrolytic hydrogen. But being said that, India should really focus on solid municipal waste as well as the agricultural waste significantly, irrespective of whatever the world thinks. I think we need to advocate for that thing and invest quite a lot in biomass hydrogen production along with the electrolytic hydrogen.
So in your wish list, what are the top 2 or 3 industries where you see they should really grab this opportunity?
Oh, wow. Okay. My wish list is fairly large, sir, but I'll try to pull some. One is if I had to slightly answer it elaborately, instead of giving a specific names, I would go with the sector.
Yeah.
First thing is that replace the existing sectors where we use hydrogen, then identify the new sectors. For example, today refineries are a place where we use hydrogen for desulfurization process, and there are like several million metric tons of hydrogen being used in that sector. I personally believe that that is where the first change has to come in, because there it's not about finding a new use case like a transportation sector where essentially that entire infrastructure needs to be developed, whereas in the refinery segment, it's just about replacing the source from SMR to the electrolysis or biomass to hydrogen, whatever the process we adopt. Next thing is that the first is refinery. The second, I would definitely go into steel plants.
Mm.
Steel plants for direct reduction of iron ore, I think is one thing that we should seriously consider. And but refinery adoption is straight away. The steel plant adoption, they can use hydrogen in their blast furnaces, possibly today to some extent. That is something they should really consider. Of course, direct reduction of iron ore that comes later, but I think we need to do this transition in these two segments. And if at all I can add a third one, I would go for fertilizer. But fertilizer is a very cost-sensitive industry because India is a big agricultural country, and most fertilizer is definitely heavily subsidized for farmers. And any increase in the feedstock cost, like let's say today we talk about hydrogen cost, the gray hydrogen cost around somewhere less than $2. And when I go to green hydrogen, it'll be somewhere around $5 to $8. I think we talk to different people. Some say five. Some the real estimates come out to be even eight, as high as eight. And who is going to pay for that? The gap. Is someone ready to give that viability gap funding? Then I would probably go into the fertilizer segments as well.
Excellent. Are there organizations in India that are already using green hydrogen? If yes, which sector and how they are using?
Apart from these three, you're asking
Yeah,
about, right?
these are industry verticals, you said. Any specific
Exactly.
organization, probably that could be sort of an inspiration for all the participants here.
Yeah. I think one is I love this vehicle segment, which, for example, Ashok Leyland, Tata Motors, and
Mm.
of course, even Volvo, Daimler is also doing it in terms of, and NTPC has come forward to really put up hydrogen vehicles. And so the thing is, the heavy duty vehicle segment is really, we talk about quite a lot on batteries. Of course, it's going to really come out, it's going to take up all the way up to the four wheelers that are cars, maybe buses to some extent, but anything beyond that, long range buses or long haul trucks, heavy duty trucks, agricultural equipments. All these things definitely will have to go in the hydrogen space because we are talking about a power which is significantly high. And people talk about, this transportation segment. We have already seen giants like the automobile giants have already put up their vehicles and then they are doing trials. This is really cool. Today, it's not economically viable, but that's okay. But I think we have to really touch and feel and then find out. We cannot go to the straight away to the 14th question and become a crorepati. I think we have to navigate through the entire 14 questions to go to that, right? And one thing that I find with this all these segments is that battery community always says that while this hydrogen fuel cell or hydrogen combustion engine based buses come out or trucks come out or any other agricultural equipment come out, the entire batteries with technology would grow extensively. Definitely it will grow, but I see a major problem. All these equipments use extremely high power charging, and our grid will collapse if at all that has to happen, if it goes all to the batteries. So it's not just about high power requirement that is being met by the present, like the heavy duty vehicles, but also that will be met by the hydrogen segment, but also the charging infrastructure required to charge all those infrastructure, if it goes in the battery, would cost heavily. And that's not viable to do it today. And that's where I think the move by these automobile giants, I feel that's a phenomenal move. In 15 years, 20 years down the line, we will see a lot of changes happening in that segment.
Yeah, and we believe that considering the supply side constraints for the batteries, especially the lithium ion, we'll be heavily dependent on someone like China, and also the zinc air or aluminum air not taking off.
Yeah.
And I still remember one of the discussions we had wherein you mentioned we probably missed the EVs, means the batteries mainly. Okay, so at the end of the day, when you say talk about EVs, it's all about batteries. So now, like in China, the world's largest manufacturer of batteries is in China, and so that has actually helped. Also, they say that that has helped down to cut down the cost because since we have a lot of supplies from China. So having missed that, and it's important for us for India to quickly accelerate the whole journey in hydrogen. So, having said that, what are the two or three things which will help to accelerate?
Yeah, correct. So it's very right. I think in the EV space, we've kind of missed out. Although I think there are today, I was sitting in a meeting on a global value chain with Niti Aayog CEO and guidance and industry secretary and a lot of industry giants in the morning at guidance Tamil Nadu. The same discussion happened, and it's very fresh on my mind now. On the battery segment, almost we use all critical, like a lot of critical minerals. And typically, the when I have to slightly go deeper, the conventional NMC chemistry, nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry, is always talked about, and cobalt seem to be locked in few places where we cannot access that easily. Whereas the new chemistry that come out on lithium iron phosphate, I think India has a very good chance. Except lithium, we will have almost all the elements in the country. We can do it. Okay, leaving that aside, coming to that's where I feel like the supply chain. I've kind of started appreciating the whole CII program and supply chain and logistics, sir. Honestly, I think once we go and see the real problem, we see how important. Academics typically don't appreciate these things unless we find a very very complex setup. We don't appreciate it. But now I started appreciating, man. That's very important to complete the whole the end-to-end execution of any program. So now coming to the hydrogen space, for example, if you go with generation side alone, we talk about PEM electrolysis, which requires platinum and iridium, which are quite expensive. And in India, we have to really import it. Now, let's take the step forward, and then I'll talk about alkaline electrolysis, which requires predominantly nickel. I think we have good neighbors with a lot of nickel, and they also have some source of nickel. I think when the supply chain problem we probably anticipated or thinking about batteries is actually doesn't exist when we select certain type of electrolysis, specifically alkaline electrolysis, or possibly to some extent anion exchange membrane electrolysis too, but anion exchange membrane also uses some elements which India doesn't have in its reserve, right? And on the utilization side, one is, for example, let's say we use it in fuel cells. Again, the platinum comes into the play. I think so. Platinum has to be really be is one of the important thing, irrespective of whatever people talk about replacing platinum. That's still the best catalyst available. But the good thing about these precious elements, either platinum, iridium, whatever I talked about, or nickel, all these electrolysis are like in megawatt scale, each of them. Recycling them back and putting them back into the supply chain is extremely easy, unlike the elements in the lithium ion batteries, for example, where there are too many elements in a very small confined space. Separating them is a bigger issue, whereas the recycling them and putting it back into the manufacturing supply chain is very easy with the hydrogen segment. That's where I feel the supply chain problem, we should really keep talking about it, and we should really have a roadmap. If we execute it properly, India will have a localization of the entire supply chain. Of course, we cannot say that 100% has to be from India. Of course, we have to import. We respect geographical locking of certain elements is there. I think we cannot avoid that. So we can really import some of them. But majority of it for the hydrogen space can be localized. Majority of the supply chain.
Okay, excellent. And there's a question on the chat box about gray hydrogen. Is there any technology available to reduce the environmental impact?
Yes, technologies are in principle available. I think typically this is a very controversial question, sir. By the way, thanks for asking that. Typically, people, I think, as you said, whenever we sit in any of the meetings where we have people from the fossil fuel segment, they say that's kind of, we try to generate hydrogen through SMR process, steam methane reforming process, using coke or gas, whatever it is. And they say that we have enough oil wells to really pump it underground. But if you look at the entire world's history in the last 50 to 60 years of pilots that's been executed for carbon capture and sequestration, none of them are economical or successful or both. This is the ground reality. Although documents come out with very flashy information saying that, oh, we have captured so much of carbon dioxide, but nothing turned out to be economical. People talk about $40 per kg per ton of carbon dioxide sequestration. And India is emitting 3 billion tons. And India is producing 6 million metric tons today. And if 1 million metric ton on average, even if you take 10 kg, I'm talking about 6 million metric tons, 60 into 10, 60 million metric tons of carbon dioxide to be sequestered somewhere. And assuming even if aquifers available, to sequester them under the earth. There are no studies on the carbon dioxide leakage over time into the environment. That study is not like kind of very clean. And that is going to really harm us. Until we really solve the problem, why to spend money to put it underneath and then after 100 years we realize that it all came out, rather than dump it straight away into the atmosphere, right? So I would say gray hydrogen definitely have to be replaced. And instead of really thinking about how to take the carbon dioxide out of it, the only option is go to green hydrogen. I think that's what I personally believe. This is something India has to, our companies have to really step forward and execute, rather than a blue hydrogen route. Blue hydrogen is, India doesn't require that blue. I think it's like whenever I sit in some government meetings, I think I get hammered for this, but I think I stand by my statement. Blue is the one of the most nonsense thought we have. I think I shouldn't be using unparliamentary words, but honestly, that's what it is. Like India should not even consider that. Should straight away go to the green.
Excellent. And which is the country that has really pioneered till date on green hydrogen, and what is the approach they have taken?
Yeah, well, that's really cool. Actually, Europe has been and in Japan. So Europe typically on the generation side of it. If you look at Denmark, Norway, they really mastered the hydrogen segment. And Canada has a lot of hydrogen infrastructure, for fuel cells, typically for utilization segment. US covers everything. And on the east, if I take Japan, is really the master in utilization to atom electrolysis available. South Korea as well, again, it somewhere stands between that. But India really started late. Of course, there are a lot of academic research running in, but I think we have to really accelerate the pace at which our ambitions are. I think we should also accelerate our efforts towards the ambitions. Yes.
And so what will be your next step moving out of the campus? Because you have done a lot of efforts inside the campus and connecting with the industry leaders and all. So what will be the next crucial step which will really make it into the industry?
Yeah, sir. So one thing, what I'm really trying to reach out to a lot of industries, and thanks for asking this. I also take this opportunity to put out this request to all the industry partners, industry delegates here is, let's start executing as soon as possible. Instead of before really thinking about generating 10 million metric tons by 2030, let's put up 1 ton per day plant and understand its techno-economic viability. There are CSR possibilities available. We have a lot of CSR grants available from a lot of companies. And now can we use that to create a full hydrogen analysis? Because this is going to decide the economy of the country. And we are talking about 30 million metric tons of hydrogen by 2047, meaning, and today we are producing 6. And we have to demolish the entire the fossil fuel infrastructure, go completely green for the entire 30 million metric tons, meaning there are a lot of technologies available. Whenever we talk to any industry, any startup, I personally made to believe that everyone is good, but we cannot blame them. They have the data on their hand. But now we have to really unanimously close the eyes and then investigate all the technologies. And that's where companies cannot put efforts in everywhere. It's a problem for everyone. So can we work together to really use CSR funds, government grants? Let's work together. I'm not talking about fundamental R&D. I'm talking about the technology that's available. Let's put them and test them and do a techno-economic assessment, do the levelized cost of hydrogen, and based on that, the entire decision on what is the future of hydrogen can be made. So far, that's what I always say when I read a report from any big companies, any consulting reports. I say, man, that's a wish list. There is nothing really saying that that's a roadmap. Roadmap and wish list are different. I think let's convert that wish list to the roadmap, or our wishes to the roadmaps, through this touch and feel pilot projects, covering the entire value segment. That would be my request. I think I'd like to put forward to the industry experts here and leaders here.
Let's consider that one of the companies attending today is interested to take it up from here, either through the CSR funding or the grants, or they themselves have got funds rich enough to try it out. So do you have all the partners to get in and put that in place?
We do have some of that, depending on what side of the hydrogen vector we are talking about, because one is generation side, the second is renewable supply side, third is storage transportation side, fourth is, of course, utilization segment. Depending on it, we have some people, and now we felt like we have a bandwidth to work with a lot of people, because we kind of understood and talk all the languages of all the entire value chain of hydrogen, and work with small companies like very new one startups, MSMEs, all the way up to very big companies. At the same time, we work with state government and union government. So we had this full length discussion or like consultations with all of them. Even if there are some areas which you're missing out today, I think I can promise I'm going to go all the way out to get this work done. I don't care if it's an individual company or if it's a group of company, or at the end of the day, we all have ambitions to really make this green hydrogen transition possible, sir. So there are some areas where we really have a bandwidth to answer your question. There are some areas we don't have, but definitely we'll pull out we'll pull all the strings possible to execute them.
And last time when we met, the one statement I still remember was like the early adoption will be not in mobility, but anywhere it's a stationary application. Does it hold good today as well?
To some extent, yes, sir. But I think I'm also evolving and growing as I talk to more people. And today I feel like the power thought that I've given. So typically the battery is also growing as fast as the battery will grow, in fact, much faster than the hydrogen segment in the transportation side. With that thought, I felt batteries will definitely take over the hydrogen heavy duty vehicle segment. But now looking at the behind the scenes on what is required for those heavy duty infrastructure, I mean transportation infrastructure, like charging infrastructure, the grid will fail. Now I changed my mind, or probably evolved, saying that let's explore them as well now, because it will be too late if we start 5 years down the line. So we'll have to start very quickly, as early as possible, to demonstrate hydrogen-based vehicles in the transportation segment, sir.
Excellent. So on behalf of Professor Arvind, and I would request everyone in this meeting, we have some of the best companies attending today, and anyone who would like to connect with Professor Arvind and his entire team. He has got a fantastic a team of researchers right at the IIT campus, and they are just behind our office in Chennai. And we'll be more than happy to accompany you and be part of the journey, and you be the inspiration for the green hydrogen. With those thoughts, Professor Arvind, I will leave you here to enjoy the weekend. I don't know whether you have a weekend, you find time to spend your weekends. Yeah. And I suppose you are still in the campus.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Great. Yeah. And so I really admire your commitment, and for India as a whole, and especially for the green hydrogen. And I'll definitely stay connected with you. And thank you very much. It was really wonderful. I know that you're a practitioner, and things are really pretty close to your heart. Any final thoughts from you, Professor Arvind?
No, sir. Thanks so much. I'm first of all, I'm very happy that I thought how hydrogen fits into this whole logistics thing. But now I think the kind of connect you brought in, and then the kind of connect that you're bringing in between industry, academia, and then industrial R&D, that's really cool. And my final word is, let's all work together, and we are there, and all of us have big ambitions. Let's all work together is one thought that I'd love to leave with today here, sir.
Thank you so much, Arvind. And
thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. Thanks so much. Thanks to CII and yourself. Yeah, great. Thank you. So